Hey, what's up, YouTube? Just got another quick video today, just going over the discussion of how long should you spend working on a single track? Short answer is as long as it takes. But there's a discussion to be had about the longer you spend on stuff, like the more diluted it can become and stuff like that. So I just sort of want to talk about this briefly. And this is just stuff that I've picked up and just my opinion. This isn't like, oh, it has to be 2.61 hours and then you will have the perfect amount of time to make a track in. No, it's going to differ for everybody, obviously. But stuff I've picked up from people like Bill Gates and Hyperbits and Crywolf is they generally try to write a track. So this doesn't include things like mixing and, doing all the little micro texture details and stuff like that. But generally having something that's like a 4, 5, 6 minute track that's written out and you can play it back and be like, okay, I see the idea, I see what you're going for. Should be done in a single session. Now, a single session could be 20 minutes all the way to like however long you can sit at the computer in one go. So 15 hours maybe. But generally, when I write stuff, I can get it done in like half an hour, and sometimes it might take a few hours. And then I have like a demo. It's not like a polished demo. It's not mixed. I wouldn't send it to labels, but it's something that I can then come back to a few days later, listen to it fresh ears, and be like, actually, yeah, there's something here. I can definitely go in and tweak the simps and add some processing and stuff like that and work on it. And on the flip side, I think about people like Ross from Friends who had that big track a few years ago, Talk to Me, You'll Understand. And from what I understand, that track was 2 years in the making. And if you like lo-fi house, you know that's a banger. It's not everyone's cup of tea though. I guess it comes down to really like if he released that track earlier, would it have done as well? Was putting all the extra tweaks in really what made it? It's really hard to say. So I guess like where does people like you and I fit into this paradigm of like where we should spend a amount of time making music? Well, I think it comes down to like knowing what's working for you and stuff like that. I guess if you find yourself always working on a track for weeks and then you're not finishing it, there's probably something going on that needs to be looked at. And it might be times where you write a track and you fall into flow and you just get it written in a day and you're like really happy with it. Just look at like your track record of success, I suppose, and just see how long those tracks took to make and how you can replicate that. So I think for me personally, my personal sort of timeline of that is, yeah, I generally try to write tracks in like 2 to 4 hours. And again, this isn't meaning like, oh, that's it, and I'm going to release it in that state. I'll go back to it and I'll mix it and sound design it, add fills and automations and stuff like that. But the general like outline of it, the draft of it is there. Um, some of my best tracks have been written in a few hours. I remember one of my first pretty good tracks, Naruk, that has I think 50,000 streams on Spotify at the moment. That was written with two of my mates with me in the studio. One of them wasn't a music producer. He just brought some beers and wanted to hang out. And the other guy was, been making music for only a little while. And we were just dicking about being, oh, let's just chuck this random Indian singing sample in, put loads of wooden percussion around it, make it sound like it's really Eastern, and then put a really like dark bass line on it. And we were like, oh yeah, this is cool. But once I finished it, I actually didn't think much of it. I thought it was going to be just a weird little track. But then we wrote two more over the next week that went with it with the EP. So I had these three tracks. And the third one we wrote, I put at the start of the EP thinking, oh yeah, this one's the best one. And then when I sent it off to labels and sent it off to like bloggers and premieres and Spotify playlists, stuff like that, everyone was like, oh, we want Narrow, we want Narrow, we want the third one, the one I thought was the worst. So there's something else to be said there about like sometimes you might work on something and you really don't know if it's any good. I'm maybe go to a different video about that, about how you really can't judge your own work sometimes. It's up to the audience, is the tastemakers, I suppose, to judge your music like that. There's also another benefit I think about writing music quickly, and that's the emotional state you're in. Say you write like half a track and you haven't got to the breakdown yet, or you haven't got your main melody in it. You've got your drums, you've got your bass line, maybe you've built like a drop section and stuff like that, but you haven't built everything else out. What happens if you come back to it a few days later is you're going to be in a different emotional state. When you get into that flow state, you're not going to be you're going to be connected to the emotional state you're now in rather than you were in. So let's say when you first wrote the track 3 days ago, you were a bit sad, something happened, you were just feeling a bit sad, you were like, oh, I'm going to write something emotional. something moody, and the next 3 days later you're feeling better, you're over it, and you go back, oh, I'm going to work on that moody track because it sounds so good. But now you're in a state of excitement and joy and happiness, and then it's going to like disconnect because you're going to have to be like, well, I want to write happy stuff, but this song doesn't really need happy stuff, or I'm going to have to front or fake making sad music to try and make it work, make it fit together, and that can work. And you could also argue that sometimes, maybe like undertone of your song is sad, like when you wrote it 3 days ago it was sad, but now you're writing stuff on top which is happy. That could be an interesting combination as well. So there is something to be said there. But I've generally found that like if you want like one really congruent piece of music that gets written fast, I don't know, we all want to write music quickly as well. Like we want to get stuff out quickly. There's no point working on one track for years. It's really good to work on something that can get done quickly and get it out, right? Again, not to say that you just work on it for 4 hours and then you just release it. Definitely come back like a few days later with fresh ears and then like work on it and tweak it and put your producer hat on, take off your writer's hat and put on your production hat and produce the shit out of it, and then put on your mixing hat and mix it and master it and stuff like that. So yeah, those are just like some of my insights into how long you should spend on making music. I'm generally more leaning towards the whole you should write a track in a single session, and then produce it over the next few days. And I guess if we want to talk about like how long you should take to actually produce the track, I mean everything to like mastered finished product, I would say the writing session might be like the original, like the draft writing session would be like 4 hours. That doesn't mean that you don't go add harmonies to it later and stuff like that, because you've got your main melody, you got the feeling of it. You're like, oh yeah, this is emotional, and then you might add some little harmonies later. So you write a bit longer, maybe that takes like another hour or two, and then you do all the production, which then might take anything between 2 to 4, maybe 8 hours, and then you start thinking about the mixing. Usually, like from what I understand from the pros, is like you want to do mixing in like half an hour to 45-minute sessions, and then you go let your ears reset, then you come back and you do that over and over and over again until it's done. Well, I'm not the world's best. I'm not that great at mixing anyway. I'm okay. You can listen to my music and judge for yourself. But yeah, this is just what I heard the pros do, and they sort of take breaks, and sometimes that takes like 4 or 5 45-minute sessions until the mix is finished. But a mix is done when it's done. You could go on forever. There's the whole conundrum of the perfect mix down, right? Which I'm sure you've all heard about. And then generally that gets sent off to a mastering engineer, which takes no more than half an hour, I suppose. I've never seen mastering take more than an hour to do. So really you're looking at something like, for a complete song to be finished, like 10 to 20 hours. That might seem really short to some people, and that might seem quite long to some people. I think that's like realistic. I think 10 to 20 hours to get a song, like a blank canvas to something that's mastered, probably closer to the 20-hour mark than the 10-hour mark. But yeah, I think that's realistic. I think when you're starting out though, it's not, obviously, because you don't know all the moving pieces yet. But yeah, that's just some insights I wanted to share. This isn't like a rule or anything. It's just some stuff that I've come across and I think about. I thought maybe I'd share my thoughts, see what you guys think. Just let me know in the comments how you handle your music, how long you spend on it. Have you had the problem where you took several days to write something and then you end up just abandoning it because it just became a jumbled mess or something? Or have you ever had that moment where literally you wrote a track in an hour and a half and it felt amazing? Let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.